Why does autistic people seek constant validation and reassurance from other people, and how can they overcome this intrusive need or desire to be able to trust their own authentic instincts? Now that is a question we are going to answer in this video. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Aspergian Journal. The act of seeking reassurance and validation from others is something that all autistic people face, as this need or desire usually stems from the anxiety they have from feeling insecure about their autism and as human beings. To be able to live freely and trust their authentic spirits and be able to live their true selves, autistic people must learn to be able to let this negative behaviour go and replace it with qualities and that shows signs of an autistic awakening within them. There are many reasons why autistic people might have this constant anxious need to find reassurance and validation from others. Might be due to the insecurities and uncertainties they faced growing up as children, the anxieties and fears they experienced as they progress into adulthood, which can be a day-to-day struggle for many autistic people, and also this behaviour of masking their autistic traits and basically hiding their true selves from the world to be able to fit this ideological expectation that society puts on people, and having to deal with the adversities that comes with it, as a neurotypical world is not really ideally suited for autistic people to be able to express their needs and expectations, and most of the time autistic people are usually treated like rubbish and just not represented in the true light and that they deserve. As society often shows disdain and negative perceptions towards people on the autistic spectrum, the thoughts and feelings associated with this, and that often feeds into the adverse views that autistic people can hold on to about themselves, and it equates to them developing more behaviours and thinking patterns to support that adverse and negative mindset and the opinions that they hold about themselves. Even though they might do this and that to be able to fit into society, as they often want to be respected and to be seen and heard, but all that does, by constantly seeking validation from other people, all it does, it just strengthens the behaviours and thoughts that keeps them trapped in this vicious anxiety cycle, and they start to feel out of touch with what their true autistic identity is, and living their best lives and that to what they want on their terms, not what society expects them to do. This builds on really well from a previous newsletter and video that I did about autism masking and how it is a negative experience for autistic people, and also associated my own experiences of how I used to deny being autistic just to try and fit into society, when the only result that came from that is many years of, well, basically causing mental self-harm towards myself, because I was just basically trying to be something that I'm not, and just to suit other people rather than suiting myself. And that is something that a lot of autistic people will associate with or have similar experiences in. When I was growing up as an autistic child, and getting into that early adolescence stage of my life, there has been many occasions where my insecurities have clouded, the good things about my autism, and I used to fixate too much on the negatives, which then only perpetuated that vicious cycle of anxiety and despair. It is very easy for autistic people to get caught up in their anxiety and mental health, where it can dictate their lives if they only allow it to. And as they often focus on things that's outside of their control, rather than focusing on their responses to those situations or scenarios, and to be able to handle them better, and to also mitigate their own mental health, and that when within those situations or scenarios, to ensure that they safeguard themselves and to be able to manage those scenarios and situations better in the long run, as they become more independent and that in themselves, and be more skilled and more trained to deal with day-to-day life, which can be a struggle for many people on the autistic spectrum. As anxiety is one of the major cornerstones of the autistic spectrum, it's very important that autistic people need to have the awareness of how their anxiety affects them, and establish healthy routines and building coping strategies that'll help them manage and overcome their mental states and induce a more peaceful and harmonious life for them. A lot of these behaviours of seeking validation and are often associated with someone who might be showing signs of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which in itself is an anxiety disorder, and that between 17 and 37% of autistic people do suffer with OCD, and it can affect their day-to-day lives and quite severely. OCD can range from anything from something basic like constantly checking your front door of your house and that before you've actually left the premises to ensure that you've locked it, or it can be something more complex and really deliberating, like constantly questioning yourself about a certain aspect of your being, where you need that validation to reassure yourself from others, just to feel better, but in the end it only provides temporary relief, and it just strengthens and gives those intrusive voices that you can have in your mind as part of your anxiety or OCD to strengthen. So the more recognition that you give those intrusive voices in your head about the things and that you worry about the most, the stronger they come back. And then if you continue that cycle, the more severe that they get. So the trick is to reframe those thoughts and feelings that you have and to change them from being a negative point of view to a more positive one, and to be able to allow those thoughts and feelings to come into your mind and body and just let them dissipate on their own and don't interact with them. And by doing that with consistency, you will hopefully start to see how it diminishes in terms of its of the severity of the anxiety that's associated with those intrusive thoughts, and also they don't impact you as much as they would be at the height of someone that has severe anxiety. The process of OCD can also be applied to when you try and mask your autism traits, or in my case, trying to deny that you are autistic, because it's the universe's way to keep pestering you until you come to accept the very thing that you are trying to run away from or trying to block out of your life entirely. Like trying to force yourself to fit into situations and environments that don't suit you are only causing you self-harm to your soul and heart without realising it. And it's like the universe is coming back at you to say that, you know, look, I don't feel comfortable in this situation, and I want to go to a place where I feel more comfortable in. Now that's different to stepping outside your comfort zone to develop your skills to be able to become more independent. As I've always said in all the videos and newsletters that I've done, it's about finding that balance between being able to develop your skills and your abilities, and as an autistic person, to be able to live a fully independent life and be able to work to your goals and dreams, and don't let your anxiety, your autism stop you in your tracks. But at the same time, never forget who you are as an autistic person, and don't neglect who you are or try and hide yourself away for other people's benefit, when really whatever you do in life has to benefit you and you only. Now, I know it is a real massive struggle for autistic people to be able to confront their anxieties head on, and it can be something that can manifest into a lifelong difficulty, and it suffers, and it has an impact on the day-to-day living for those people. But if you do have the ability to be able to confront your anxiety and to not allow it to dictate your life, there comes a time, a crossroads kind of situation, where you have to decide, do you either carry on denying that you're autistic or trying to hide your autistic traits just to try and fit into the social norms that is causing your anxiety to strengthen and that further already as it is? Or do you accept your autism, the good and the bad, and build towards becoming the best version of yourself that's on your terms? As I was growing up, I tried to deny that I was autistic and had to try and be able to fit in with my neurotypical peers in efforts to fit in and to be accepted by them. But all that resulted was just putting extreme, unnecessary pressure on myself to perform to a standard that wasn't really necessary, and it was just hurting me in many ways, more than one can imagine. And it's not just autistic people that can suffer this. Even neurotypical people out there try and live to society's expectations for a variety of reasons, and often they just feel miserable and living in despair as a result of it. You only have to go on social media or even talk to a lot of people about, they have regrets in life. I mean, one of the biggest impactful ones is when you get someone who is at their later stages of their life, and they maybe have got an illness or something, and they maybe on their way out in a kind way, and they often reflect about the life they've lived, and have they lived it well, and did they was there things that they could have done differently. And often more than enough, especially in older generations before mine, often have always said that they wish that they could have spent more time to focus on their on hobbies or other interests, and now that they could have spent more time on, rather than just constantly been at work. So, and that serves as a life lesson to everyone, that you have to do what works for you and be able to have a balance of many things. Not just have, work, and then you get to 60 or 70, like retirement age, and you've worked all your life and then you've got to a stage when you want to enjoy life, but you might be having difficulties with your body or other health issues that can prevent you from doing the things that you want to do. And then that sometimes is a real crying shame, because I bet if they could go back, they wish that they would have, lived in the moment rather than just planning for the future and just working towards that end goal, when they should have focused more on the journey of the here and now. If you'd have met me 10 years ago, I was fixated on, having a high-flying career, gone to college, university. I wanted to become a chartered accountant, be able to go work around the world. And in some ways, I would like to still be able to work around the world and see the world at the same time. But I just wasn't so fixated now about, constantly working, which is what the mindset was 10 years ago, to be able to have a balance in life now, where I do a mixture of different things, like starting my own business with the Aspergian Journal and other things that I'm doing in the background, and which will help me towards the life that I want to live and build towards. Now, I'm not saying that I've got everything sorted out or figured out from day one. No, because sometimes that's a work in progress and things can evolve over time. But if you live in the here and now with the right intention and the proactive action that you need to take day after day towards the goals and dreams that you have in life, you will get there. So don't be ashamed to put yourself first, and whatever family that you have, because obviously if you've got children and, wife, husbands, partners and so on, obviously they do play a part in your life. But never forget to live life for you as well, because you just never know when that last day might come. Life is too short to be, living and working so hard for that moment in the future that might never come. You got to live in the here and now and embrace every day as best as you can, whilst still have those goals and dreams that you can work towards. So it's that balance between not always having to have this instant gratification of I've got to have everything now, and you can always keep working towards things in the future, but it's important to be able to still enjoy what you've got in your life in the here and now and show gratitude for it. Even though you might be going through difficult times, and many people do, but there's always things that you can still show gratitude for, which a lot of people seem to forget because they fixate so much on something that they haven't got, and they actually neglect the things that they do have. So never take life for granted, and live each and every day the best you can, and still commit yourself to be that 1% better every single day, and to becoming the person you want to be. After many years of coming to terms with my autism and embracing who I am as a person, so by reducing the need or desire of seeking validation or reassurance from others, and trying to ignore what is perpetuated online, about how society should be, when realistically it can be a real falsehood. By accepting who I am, those negative thoughts and feelings did start to diminish, and I adopted a less serious and more laid back approach at looking at things and evaluating the situations and that are beyond my control, and focus on the things that matter whilst pursuing the goals and dreams and that I'm working hard towards. Autistic people may seek reassurance and validation when in situations or environments that greatly tests their sensory overload difficulties, their lack of understanding for social clue and norms, and stressing over negative past experiences where they might feel it could happen again, and dealing with outside influences that can have a negative impact on their health and well-being only if they allow it. And this can happen at any age or stage in life, and it can have a detrimental effect on their overall well-being if it is allowed to fester and it isn't challenged earlier on, before it takes hold of one's ability to live their life independently and with intention. There has been many occasions, to the point where I've lost count, of when my sensory overload has gone into overdrive, or experienced uncomfortable situations where my lack of understanding for social clues and norms has put me in situations where I used to, try and escape from those environments, and that because my anxiety was too high, and I had to, seek reassurance from others and to be able to calm me down in those situations. But the thing is, as time went on, if you aren't able to be able to tackle those situations more effectively, then you're always going to be relying on that other person to reassure you in those stressful social situations. But if that person wasn't available, what's the alternative? Are you just gonna wait until that person comes back, or are you gonna challenge your resilience for these stressful social situations and be able to, with consistent practice, be able to tackle them more better, and hopefully as you do it, as you practice it more and more, the less anxious you are about those situations. That's one of the things that I did when I used to get anxious about going into certain places, or like going on the bus for the first time. I used to be really anxious about doing those things. But it was only when I pushed myself out my comfort zone and continuously did that consistent practice, the more better I became at managing those situations better, and actually felt more freer and more independent as a result of it. So this is really a reminder that anxiety and that can restrict autistic people from living their best lives truly, and it can hold them back, and in that despair state of mind that's keeping them trapped and from the elements and that where life and that can be experienced from. And the whole point of everything that I do is to showcase and that autistic people can be more independent and be more confident in themselves to tackle things and that's outside of their control, and they can tackle it with great efficiency if they have got the skills, the training, and the determination to confront their fears and anxieties head on, and over time, and it doesn't cause them that much anxiety as a result. And that's how they become more confident individuals. I have some suggestions that can help you to break free from this prison of validation that you can find yourself in, and be able to push yourself to a life of more independence and confidence, as well as, being in a state of mind and well-being that might feel like signs of an autistic awakening. Number 1, recognise your compulsive habit for seeking validation and consider using CBT to combat your anxious behaviours. To be able to confront your fears and habits that are holding you back in life is first to have the self-awareness for these behaviours and the associated thoughts and feelings you experience at the same time, and when you are acting out at these behaviours. You'll be surprised by how many people in the world, autistic or non-autistic, don't have the ability to have the self-awareness and of why they're acting out in this way and why are they having these thoughts, or sometimes they're not willing to accept that they've got these habits and behaviours that are disruptive to their lives, and it's only perpetuating the vicious cycles of anxiety and that they're experiencing further, and strengthening in their severity of how it affects the people in general. So when you constantly seek validation or reassurance from others to feel better about yourself or the approach that you have for certain situations, all you're doing is feeding into those OCD tendencies, which in itself is anxiety-driven behaviours, and it's derailing your courage to face those fears head on and be able to manage them and embrace uncertainty. Now, I know uncertainty is something that a lot of autistic people struggle with. I struggle with it many times, where I have to know the details about something or know where I'm going if we're going out somewhere. Now, that's never going to diminish in its entirety, but it's about not allowing those feelings of uncertainty to build up so much that it's causing you, severe anxiety, where it's impacting your day-to-day life, or it's stopping you from doing the things and that brings joy to your life, or working towards the goals and dreams and that you have. I know it might sound scary tackling anxiety and OCD head on. I know it sounds scarier than it looks, but the one thing that I've learnt over the years as an autistic person is that uncertainty is part of day-to-day life, and you can't avoid it. And if you try to do so, all it does, it gives the anxiety the permission and that to continue, and it's just going to repeat that cycle time and time again until you break it. That is the concept of OCD. You have an intrusive thought, and then you do a compulsive action and that to combat it, and then you get that sign that relief, that temporary relief, and you feel better. But then all it does, it just repeats the cycle time and time again, but only it strengthens in terms of its severity and how it impacts you. Now, what you got to realise is that intrusive thoughts are just that, they're just thoughts. But how you respond to them, that's the bit that you can control. By taking away the impulsive behaviour that you're doing to combat the thoughts, you are breaking that chain. You're breaking that cycle of anxiety, and as you repeat the process of breaking away from that compulsive behaviour, the severity of the anxiety that you have for whatever intrusive thought you have, the weaker your anxiety becomes, and the more you feel better as a result of it. When I decided to overcome my anxiety and to reduce the need of seeking validation and the anxiety associated with it, I started looking into like CBT, or cognitive behavioural therapy, which is a talking therapy where you talk about your anxious thoughts and worries, and challenge the meaning of those thoughts, and break away the cycle of the compulsive behaviour that you're doing, and that's perpetuating and strengthening the thoughts and that you're feeling anxious about. By breaking that chain, you are not giving the thought any validation for it to continue. And as you practice just letting the thought escape out your mind, and that the weaker the anxiety associated with it becomes. Number 2, consider using a journal to record and reflect on your thought patterns and to provide positive affirmations about yourself. Another great method that can help you to overcome this need or desire for external validation from others and the anxious behaviours that you are doing that's associated with it is by keeping a journal which you can use to record the amount of times that you need validation and reassurance, and reflect on how you responded to those situations. So a good example of this would be when I was at secondary school, I would always ask someone, "Oh, did I get everything in that from my desk, or did I leave anything in the classroom?" And it's like I always had to go back and check at least 5 or 6 times before I go on to my next lesson. And all that does, it just keeps you trapped in that need for validation or reassurance, when realistically it goes against the grain of what I was doing, because I've never really been one of these people where I leave stuff behind anyhow. So it was going against my nature, and all it was doing, it was just the anxiety's way to try and control me. But by removing the compulsive behaviour, in this case constantly checking my desk in the classroom before I left, like 5 or 6 times, by reducing that number to like only checking once, then over time I didn't have to act out that compulsive behaviour, and the weaker my anxiety became. Along with using cognitive behavioural therapy, journaling can help you keep grounded in your efforts and to overcome the anxiety-driven nature of the habit that you have of seeking validation from others. But this can also apply to any other kind of habit scenario you've got going on in your life that is actually holding you back. Now, the whole purpose of this video and the associated newsletter that I've done on this, it's not about the nature of the intrusive thoughts and that one can have that causes them to have anxiety. This is mainly about, why does autistic people question themselves about their autism, and why do they allow society's expectations to stop them living their true self, living their lives on their terms and being their true selves? Now, this really builds on nicely from the video that I did about masking. Why do we hide our autism traits, and how do we be more self-confident, more self-accepting about our autism? And really this does build on about removing the need and desire to have to seek out external validation from others, when we should be self-validating ourselves and trust our own instincts. The main purpose here is to become more self-independent and be more confident of our abilities and be able to think for ourselves. And we don't need other people to do that for us. As validation can be something that's more linked to being negative about ourselves, journaling can be a very good tool when it comes to express more positiveness about yourself, and to record and create like a gratitude journal, where you write out all the good things that you've got going in your life, and to always have that as a reminder that you are enough, you are making progress and strides in the right direction, and you don't need to compare yourself to other people. And as you do this, you know, the less anxious you're going to become about your autism, and be a better person for it. Number 3, reconnect with your special interests or develop new ones as a source of joy and life choices. To be able to cope with the anxieties that are related to you having the need for seeking external validation and reassurance, it's very useful to be connected to your special interests, current and new, as they can provide a massive source of enjoyment. Also, a way to be able to focus your mind when you're experiencing high anxiety, and also to identify, the purpose and passion, and that could lead to future employment or starting a business. Special interests and that can change and evolve over time as autistic people get older and they start to embrace new things. Being in touch with my special interests helped me massively with moments of high anxiety and feeling insecure about myself, as it offers like an escape and a focus on the positives of my life, rather than fixating on the negatives that were driven by my anxiety and the symptoms and that I experienced as a result of it. Many interests of mine can range from watching Top Gear with Jeremy Clarkson, James May and Richard Hammond, to developing my love and that for the James Bond 007 film franchise, and trying to build towards becoming more of an amateur connoisseur, passionate about the history of Scotch whisky and other spirits like wines, French cognacs, and many others. So by fixating on your special interests, and it provides you that source of enjoyment and an escape when you have those moments of high anxiety, but it can also it can give you that drive, that direction towards a life that you want to build and lead, as you want to escape that anxiety prison of validation from others, and be able to trust your own instincts and live on your terms. Number 4, cultivate a unique path forward for yourself that leads to a symphony of your own autistic awakening. Even when you do overcome your need to seek validation and reassurance from others, you need to have something that is positive and uplifting to fit in its place. Something that propels you forward to a life filled with your goals and dreams. It's a little thing called autistic awakening. An autistic awakening is described as a point where an autistic person gets to a place of self-acceptance and confidence, whilst unleashing themselves away from the layers of societal conditioning and reconnecting with their true autistic natures, and live for their purposes and passions in life, and that's based on their terms and visions for the future. Now, there's many signs that an autistic awakening you can experience, that can range from you feel less urgency to seek or check for other people's approval or validation for you before acting out. You spend more time in states of calmness and focus rather than lashing out on anxiety impulse. You find pride and that's based on your sensory overloading preferences, communication styles, and special interests and passions. You start to say no to things and people that don't bring many purposes to your life without needing to justify it. You know about it within yourself. You seek and create environments where your natural autistic traits thrive rather than forcing yourself into environments where you must falsely perform to others rather than to yourself. When the days that came where I felt freer than ever before from the anxieties that kept me hiding my true self and constantly questioning myself or seeking validation from others, my body and mind rejoiced massively, and it was a moment of where I could just freely, start planning and working towards the goals and dreams that I had in life, and that without restricting myself and that based on other people's opinions. This eventful moment where a weight and that was lifted from my shoulders only came within the last few years. So if you've read or watched my story up to this point, it shows that it's a testament to other autistic people that the pains that you currently suffer are only temporary and things can get better, and you have the determination and the ability within you to make those necessary changes. You just got to have the self-belief, the determination, the resilience, and always have a plan of where you want to go in the future. And I have the strongest belief that you will get there. So make up that promise to yourself. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please do consider subscribing to the Aspergian Journal on YouTube and Substack, and that's so you can be kept in the loop for when new content is released as we keep striving forward and on this mission of autism advocacy through creative empowerment and inspiration. As always, thank you.